Welcome to the seventh episode of the Good Vibes Only show. Today's guest is a writer, a journalist, and someone who's deeply passionate and committed in empowering young minds and women entrepreneurs. So please welcome Pranoti, who's also an avid reader, a passionate storyteller, and so much more that I don't think so I'll do justice to what I say. So let's hear it out from her. And in today's episode, we'll talk about the present state of journalism, how Pranoti took journalism, why did she take journalism, and what does a wellness communication coach does, and all of this. So welcome, Pranoti. I'm very, very happy to have you on board, and thank you for doing this for me. How do you feel today?
I feel great, to be honest, and thank you for inviting me. It's actually one of my first times being on this side of a
Right.
podcast because I did some of these activities during college, but
Mm-hmm.
I have always liked interviewing people, and even as a journalist, I've always been interviewing
I know.
people rather than getting interviewed. So it surely feels different, but I'm very happy to be here, and thanks for calling me. It's a lovely morning. It's a great time for
Yes.
discussing.
Yes. So, before we begin, I want to know that how did you step into journalism? As in, tell us, just walk us through your what do you say, experience and journey. That why did you choose to become a journalist or pursue journalism?
Okay, sure. So the thing was, I did not like creative writing. You will not believe that. But
Okay.
growing up, I did not like creative writing
Hmm.
because it was a subject I couldn't get full marks in.
Hmm.
As you know, like in school, being a perfectionist and everything, I wanted to have a perfect score. And that was the only subject where I scored well, but couldn't really get the full 10
Oh.
on 10, 20 on 20 marks in it. But in eighth grade, I joined this English class that taught me a lot more than communication. It developed an affinity within me for the English language. And then I got into reading. I started listening to Taylor Swift songs, love story. It was a big thing at that time. And being
Yeah.
a teenager, we all sing alongside it. I would participate in a lot of school activities that were like editorial board of magazines. We had a
Hmm.
radio program in school. I also started participating and winning elocution competitions, which I enjoyed a lot. And more than the competition itself, or more than the winning part of it, I just enjoyed speaking. I just enjoyed being a part of crowd,
Hmm.
people with diverse communities coming from different walks of life, trying to just tell their stories in different ways. And I felt like, yeah, this is the place to be. So in eighth grade, I decided that no matter what, I wanted to go after journalism because it was one of the careers that ticked all the boxes: liking for
Yes.
writing, liking for communication, liking for telling stories, meeting new people. So it ticked all of those boxes, and I decided to pursue it. So after school got over, I took my entrance test very seriously, got into Symbiosis, one of the best known schools for journalism in the country. And yeah, that's how I pursued journalism. But I always believe in this saying that don't let the kind of person you want to be stop you from the kind of person you can be. So I had a very different idea of journalism when I started out. And when I actually got done with college, I worked with consultancy firms, think tanks, and then finally joined 101 Reporters, which is a platform for independent journalists. And it was a very different kind of journalism than I thought what I would step into. But it was very eye opening, and we'll, I think, talk more about it as we
Yes,
go
yes.
ahead.
I also want to, because when I started, I mean, the very thought of pursuing journalism came with a lot of preconceived notions, but then when you actually step into the industry, you realize that it's so much more than it meets the eye, right?
Yeah, it's so much more than meets the eye. So yeah, that's how I got into journalism.
Hmm.
But apart from it, I also enjoy writing poetry. I also enjoy just telling my story, writing for my own sake.
Hmm.
And I do use a blogging platform or a newsletter as writing about communication and wellness too. So
Right.
yeah, that's how I got into the field.
So from from pursuing journalism to getting into entrepreneurship and helping people, especially women, empowering women and young minds, how did that shift happen? As in, does journalism and teaching or communicating go hand in hand? How does that shift happen?
Yeah, it does. So in the last year of college, I was just observing a lot of people around me. And I was telling, right, that I was working with communication departments of different think tanks and consultancy firms. And I started realizing that a lot of things that go wrong in our work have something to do with the way we communicate ideas with each other, the way we share ideas with each other. And these were some of these were like proper corporates with teams in them. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what got me thinking about how to communicate effectively within a team. And after seeing so many examples of that going wrong, I started realizing that, okay, I like to do this. I like to speak to people. I think I have the patience to also listen to people well. So, why not experiment with communication coaching?
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid, also, I had done a lot of public speaking courses. So, that's what I'm developing for school going kids currently, trying to get them into public speaking through fun ways. It shouldn't be another lesson that they are made to sit and
Yeah,
another lecture that they have to
true.
attend, and they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't like that. They will
Mm-hmm.
be the first person going home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, because English to me was made fun, and that's why I developed a liking towards it, and that's what I would like to do for
Mm-hmm.
the upcoming generation.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know even the methods of communication are changing. We maybe you and I learned the language through storytelling. We heard our parents, our elders tell us stories, narrate us stories, but nowadays a lot of kids are also watching YouTube while having their meals. The method of storytelling is also evolving.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what got me interested into coaching and women entrepreneurs and professionals particularly, because I've noticed women kind of hold back a little when it comes to
True.
sharing their ideas, be it in companies, be it in as an entrepreneur, because as an entrepreneur starting something of your own requires a lot of confidence to go out there and actually do it no matter what someone is saying. So actually, the idea of coaching, even for me, started only with mindset coaching. And mindset coaching was only about like confidence development, trying to lose the people pleasing tendencies, because that was something I heavily related to in my college days. And yeah, confidence building, as I said. So it started with just mindset coaching, but it developed into communication, it developed into
Mm-hmm.
wellness, stress management. So even the idea of seeing me as a coach was different in my mind
Mm-hmm.
than what, but I'm super grateful for the way it played out because it's got me where I am today. So
Right. So you just told us that your association with 101 Reporters. So I want to know how did it start? What does this platform do? If you could tell more about this platform. I know, but a lot of people don't. So what is this 101 Reporters? What do they do? And I also know that it houses more than 3,500 journalists or reporters all over the country. So I just want to know your association with that team and how did it play out for you?
yeah, sure. And I'm glad you're also a part of it.
Yeah.
101 Reporters is a platform for independent journalists across the country. We have over 3,500 to 4,000
Mm-hmm.
members who are
Mm-hmm.
registered reporters with our platform. And we particularly focus on telling stories about issues that impact the rural communities,
Mm-hmm.
the people living in rural communities. So, when we talk about the changing nature of journalism, I feel this is one of the areas, the local voices, the rural voices, what we collect from the grassroots. It's one of the areas that with time is getting empowered, which it wasn't before. So I think 101 has played a crucial role in doing that. It was founded in 2015. And at that time, it was mostly focused on training the grassroots reporters to pitch their stories and
Mm.
get published by national platforms. But now, I think from a few years back, we also started being our own publishing platform. So we publish stories of our reporters, and we have a network of publishers who are interested in republishing the stories of the
Mhm.
reporters to
Mm.
give them more voice.
Mhm.
And we also run a lot of side projects to projects which in fact align with our goal of empowering grassroots reporters to tell stories in a more effective manner.
Mhm.
So we are also currently running a climate change reporting grant, which is a grant for reporters who are actively reporting on climate change issues across the country. And yeah, we'll I think be selecting 20 fellows to do that. We are also doing a crime and punishment project, which is about telling crime and punishment related
Mhm.
stories of stakeholders who are actively interacting with the criminal justice system of India.
Mhm.
This is done in collaboration with the Center for Legal Policy. And yeah, we keep running these side projects to keep our reporters interested, and whoever
Mhm.
is actively doing stories in that domain
Mhm.
automatically gets a chance to do that.
Mhm.
So as for my role with 101 reporters, um, I started my journey as a sub editor with them. Now I also do some basic editing for the stories, and I also run the communications in our internal network of reporters, which is pretty big, but it's something I enjoy doing. I like to speak to reporters from different backgrounds. We have North Indian reporters, South Indian reporters,
Yeah.
even some reporters from the northeastern states.
Mhm.
And actually, I wouldn't say it's a perfect mixture of everything, but we would like it to be more representing different regions. And it's a role that I like to play. So I convey all of our new projects to them. I also host most of these Saturday meetings that we have. It's like a network wide meeting, which any reporter who is a part of a network can come and join. So
Mhm.
I host these meetings with my colleague, and we share the ideas that we would like them to pursue, or we are also open to hearing
Mhm.
the ideas that they have, and they can
Mhm.
ask us questions about it. We can brainstorm together. So it's like a very open communication network, which is a two-way street. And I enjoy playing that role because, again, it ticks my boxes for the liking for writing and speaking,
Mhm.
which
Right.
is also what coaching does. So yeah, it kind of boils down to that.
Yeah. So, why do you think grassroots stories need to be told? And do you think that the mainstream media isn't doing justice to the local stories, or say that don't have much time to run it on air, on television, or write about them on newspapers? Why do you think the local stories matter?
Okay, so as you know, firstly, modern journalism is a far cry from what it used to be. In the past, you probably received majority of your news from your local newspaper, or when TVs came out, you would maybe watch the news after dinner or just while watching TV. The nature of journalism itself is changing. Now, everyone with an internet connection and a phone is kind of like a journalist, and we have that power today. We have the power to tell our own stories today, and that's why we particularly stress on not just grassroots stories but also the local grassroots reporters, because they belong to that region, they probably belong to that community, and they have the power to tell their community story.
Mm.
um, I would say that today's journalism has everything. It has the 24/7 internet connection. There are different news stations providing news from different viewpoints. We have social media, we have smartphones, but there is
Mhm.
a little something that is missing in today's journalism, I would say. And can you guess
It's
what it is? It's
cred
time.
time. Yeah.
That too, but yeah, it's also linked with time.
I mean,
So
everything is available at one go, at one click. But I think there's credibility missing because everything which is trendy, say on Twitter or Instagram, everything is just available that people do not have the time to sit back and think that, okay, this is something that I want to think about, right? So, because there's so much coming in that you don't understand what to not read, what to read, how to consume, what to consume. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You're so right about that. And what we don't have anymore is time. So credibility also gets affected because of this, because everyone wants to be the first one to break the news.
Yeah.
They have to be fast, they have to be on their feet. And they don't have the time to become deeply engrossed in the issue, in the problem that is affecting the community. So investigative journalism is what I would say is taking a bit of a backseat because
Mm.
of the time related competition that everyone is
Mm.
going for these days. And investigative journalism is something that is quite needed when you are doing deep reporting or feature stories on rural local issues,
Mm.
because just like everything, just like issues in the cities, they are affected by multiple factors. So we don't stay limited to a beat. We try to report stories from every beat. So we do health stories, education, environment, things to do with climate change, even reporting at the intersection of gender and any
Mm.
other beat.
Mm.
Because that is also one voice which
Mm.
is taking up the stage these days. And yeah, that's why I think investigative reporting, particularly on rural stories, is important, because unlike everything, I don't think it should get replaced by 5 to 10 blog posts a day, which
Absolutely.
no matter how much we say that it's fast and it's informative, will not have as much substance as a long form investigative piece would. So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
think these rural stories is super important.
Hmm. Honestly, when I grew up, I have even I am an avid reader. I read especially crime documentaries or say something which has this investigative journalism kind of thing. So I read Hussein. I used to read Hussein Zaidi books. I still do. So back then it was. I mean, when I don't know whether you've come across this book, Mafia Queens of Mumbai, where Hussain Zadi with Jane Boggess. She worked with Midday Mumbai, so they both came together and wrote about the uh, women who actually supported these gangsters. So the stories were about women who actually were not on the forefront, but I mean, they helped the gangsters to become who they were back then. So yeah, they
Yeah.
that also encouraged me to pursue journalism. But now what I see is there's a lot of clickbait journalism happening. I mean, because I think it is also to do with us. We do not have that much patience to sit and read a report for that matter. So yeah, time
Yes.
time is one factor, and I think local stories need to be told more because the mainstream say in newspapers don't have space, because nowadays everything is run by advertisements. Because who reads a paper these days? And
I,
what, a paper costs hardly what, 6 rupees, 9 rupees. And I know because I have worked with a lot of newspapers, so I know that it takes a lot of your time, energy to pursue one story, get the sources talking, takes a lot. But then the cost of the newspaper. Your one story is just the one side or the half page, right? Not more than that. But then the effort that you take to build that story, write that story, is so much that even words can't do justice to. So yeah, that is something that is missing. Even I feel I'll come to that. So now that we've spoken about rural stories, why they are important, I want to know your perspective on the present state of journalism. What do you think about the changing perception of people? And when you wanted to pursue journalism, how did it changed from then to now? What is the state today? I want to know your perspective.
okay. So I will say it hasn't changed that much from that time, because I was also towards the end of my school when I was seriously thinking about pursuing journalism, which was not that back, like maybe a decade. But what
Hmm.
has made a difference since then, I think Twitter has a big role to play in it,
Hmm.
because almost every independent journalist you see probably has a Twitter profile, which is very active, which is interacting with a lot of accounts. So social media, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you get your news from. I feel even apps. I remember using in shorts a lot during COVID times.
Hmm.
During the pandemic, when we would get those updates on our phones. But I stopped using InShots after that. So I
Hmm.
would get a lot of news from Instagram. I would get a lot of news from Twitter. And personally, I do still follow a lot of YouTube creators who analyze news. But the way news is changing today, I think has both good and bad points, uh, or rather points that I am happy about and the points that I'm not happy about. So okay, we'll keep the positive things for the end so we can keep the
Yeah.
answer on a good note. What I don't like about it is credibility, which you were also referring to. So journalism has become more about not reporting, but kind of analyzing the news and checking whether it's credible or not. Because I don't know any person who is deriving news just from one source today. Maybe you are also referring to different platforms and looking at the same stories told from different perspectives. Maybe Instagram, some news platform will tell it in a different way. Then you'll come across a reel which has a completely different perspective on it. So we are not relying on a single platform to get our news, which is a good thing, because okay, we want to look at it from different perspectives.
Hmm.
But it has become more about fact checking. It has become more about checking whether the facts are actually accurate or not. You have AI, you have deep fakes. AI has been a game changer, I'll say, in terms of entrepreneurship. I wouldn't have been a solopreneur if it wasn't for AI, because AI replaces a lot of things that you I would have otherwise needed help for. But it also has its downsides when it comes to generating deep fakes, when it comes to generating things that are not even present, generating fake articles. So journalism has also been about filtrating news these
Hmm.
days from what is fluff.
Hmm.
So that's what I don't like about it. What I also noticed is pretty negative is the apathy that has developed within people. So if we are going too hardcore on political reporting, like, okay, I do appreciate the people who take particular interest in it and haven't they actually have a pretty good analytical mind to um, report on policy issues, political issues, how that
Hmm.
isn't how politics is influencing the policy issues. But when it gets too sensational, when it gets too when there are too many debates, when there are too many disagreements, um, even the readers who are reading it or viewers who are watching it start distancing themselves from it,
Yeah.
because maybe it's the nature of the conflict that drives them away. And then you don't feel like reading it, then you don't feel like listening to it, and you start developing this apathy towards it, that what will I do listening to this debate, what will I
Mm-hmm.
do to this conflict.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not happening in India, it's happening in the US also a lot. Some of my friends, or even some of the media professionals, have been saying that they don't feel like consuming news because
Hmm.
of status of politics in the country. So um, I don't know, maybe we can change the way in which politics is reported or politics is looked at. But like, I personally have never been that much into politics, so I don't know what's the right way of reporting it. But there is surely an apathy that is created, which is the bad part about it. What is a good part about it is independent journalists, freelance journalists are increasing in number now more than ever, and they are empowered by platforms which are solely dedicated to telling their stories, be it one-on-one reporters. There are also a lot of other platforms, India Spend, Down to Earth, which Ben Box, doing a lot of good work in telling stories of people. So independent journalists are getting empowered by the day, and these platforms, they also have the power to let a journalist coming from a rural background, a journalist coming from a very hyper local background, tell their stories. Even if they probably don't have the educational qualification for it, or haven't worked with 5, 6 newspapers in the past, that doesn't matter anymore, because
Yeah.
there are editors at the desk, there is an editorial team which can help you do that. So you get to tell your story, and it is packaged in a way that it is well readable, or well formed into a video that people can listen to.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the good part about it. Also, another thing, data journalism, I feel, is also changing the game, because data journalism is enabling data to be broken down in a way which can be understood very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you check your apps on your phone, or you'll see platforms breaking down hard to read reports, the health and family survey, the ncrp, you'll see them broken down into nice pie charts, bar graphs, and the analysis being done in a way that it is very easily understandable, and in fact the graphic itself is pretty self-explanatory. So data journalism is also being used as a course in college, being introduced as a course in college, which I feel is a really good thing, because it's going to make hard things very understandable for any layperson who wants to read them.
Right.
Because who's going to go through all those numbers printed in a
Hmm.
newspaper? Won't
Right.
understand. So yeah, that's what I feel.
Also, we've spoken about how freelance journalists are so much more in the country now than ever. What do you think about the future of freelance journalists? As in, I've heard from a lot of people that not only journalists, a lot of people who do freelancing are not paid enough, as in the pay gets delayed, or say they're not paid or compared to the amount of hard work that they do. So, do you think being a freelance journalist or editor, for that matter, anybody who wants to pursue journalism or writing in a very freelancing perspective, is it a boon or bane? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it is a very known and important challenge in this field. So I think becoming aware of it is the first thing, because everyone needs an incentive to keep going, right?
Yeah.
No matter what you're doing, you need an incentive to keep going. And this is something that I think the platforms that are catering to these journalists or the editors, um, that is something the platforms need to keep in mind, because um, it's going to incentivize them, it's going to help them tell the stories from the grassroots, or
Mm.
uh, about different subjects that they want to. um, but I think this shift and this realization will take some time to happen, because a lot of outlets in the country are still used to the whole newsroom type of setting,
Mm.
where you have correspondents, you have state reporters, who also, I won't say are paid well,
Yeah.
but still on the payroll of that organization, and them getting paid is at least guaranteed. When it comes to freelance and independence journalism, I feel we need more structure to ensure that. But then also, it's the journalists' duty themselves to dive into the issue, do all the investigative reporting that they are interested in doing,
Mm. Mm.
keep the facts authentic,
Mm.
talk about your sources, reveal the required data to the fact checking desk of whichever organization you're working with. So it's a both sided responsibility, and the shift will take some time to happen. But yeah, it will work towards incentivizing people to do that. But yes, this is a challenge.
Yeah, even for reporters, maybe cub reporters, trainee journalists who are just starting, the pay still isn't that high as compared to what was 10 years back, say. Because
Yes.
uh, trainee journalists especially, they're just starting, they have so much to learn. And when you see anchors on TV, it looks all glamorous, because I remember when I was 13 or 14, say, I used to be very excited and fascinated by, anchors dressing up and sitting in their air conditioned rooms and delivering news. But then what you don't see is that the network is of 100 reporters who are on field, and they are doing all the hard work and getting the news to the table, and then the job of the anchor starts, right? I'm not, of course, undermining anybody's effort, but it takes a lot. It takes a village to gather news, as you said, collect
Yeah,
sources, have them reveal themselves. So, yeah, I mean, I think the pay structure needs to be a little more organized, and so that, young enthusiasts wouldn't feel that scared to get into journalism, say.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because a lot of people these days don't want to do journalism because they know IT pays you well as compared to other options. But when
yeah,
it comes to journalism, it's altogether a different ball game. So I think that needs to be changed. So now we understand that it's a changing phase. Journalism is changing, and these days, even when I started, a lot of opportunities came along. I wouldn't lie, but these opportunities were altogether not coming from a reporter's perspective, because I, growing up, wanted to be a very hardcore reporter for that
oh,
matter.
okay.
Yeah. But then opportunities that came my way, included web desk. So I am not a person who would sit on the desk and, just copy news from, say, ANI or PTI or any news agency. So I think from a very employment perspective, even that has changed, because, as you said, you stopped consuming news from InShots because Twitter and Instagram played a very huge role, right? And now you need to upload news on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on all of your social media handles. So you need man labor for that. You need
Exactly.
people to do that. AI cannot just copy, paste, edit, and, put across all the platform. So
And
that is
you don't know how much fluff will get inserted into it while
yeah, you
it
need to change the
goes.
pictures, you need to add pictures. So I've been through that. So I know that even from a very job perspective, that has also changed. And a lot of people who I come from very old school journalism kind of thinking. So that I kind of miss the investigative feel, when you go on the ground and you have to, say, uncover a story. That gives a kick that, okay, I'm doing something worth it, right? That is something missing, I feel.
Yeah, you see this in series. I don't know if you've watched House of Cards
I
or
have, I have.
yeah. So we can actively see that Zoe character
Hmm.
getting her hands dirty on the field. I'm not saying that's the ideal way to go about it, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, the way it's shown in TV shows and movies, that an investigative reporter diving deep into the issue, getting
Hmm.
involved in it, reporting on it. Um, so yeah, that is something which is missing, but with the right incentive, with the right support, I think another thing which can be made better is the relationship between the reporter and their editor.
Absolutely.
So editors are the people who are maybe from that platform, or maybe hired, or maybe have like a consulting kind of deal with the platform, but they are ultimately out there to help you tell your story. They are not some judges trying to dismiss your claims. They are not some judges trying to judge your story. So I think whatever criticism comes from them, or whatever communication happens between an editor and the reporter, should be taken in a very professional manner and
Yeah.
not in a personal,
Should be transparent
because
as well.
yeah. Because if you're not, again, it comes down to communication. If you're not communicating well, the story
Hmm.
is not going to come out. There might be a time when the reporter also gets so frustrated with
Hmm.
the feedback, or the lack of it, that they get demotivated to complete the story. And
Hmm.
these are stories that require some time to do it, right? Because these are investigative stories. They may take a month, they may take two
Absolutely.
months, take longer than that to
Mhm.
dive into the issue and report on it. So that level of motivation is something that needs to um, stay. It may go through its ups and downs, but it needs to stay. And with the constant support of the editor, it can. But yeah, this relationship can be bettered for sure.
Right. Yeah, because I know when I was looking for stories for 101 Reporters Crime series, it was very difficult to get in touch with the stakeholders. And for that matter, I was planning to do a story on violence. Back then, journalists, reporters especially, read like 1,000 paper charge sheets. They met the person concerned. And, I think it's on a very personal level when you actually connect with, say, a criminal or a defense lawyer, or anybody, any stakeholder for that matter.
Yeah.
It becomes all the more easy because you know the stories from both the sides. Right. And these days it's so difficult because I approached an NGO where they used to take care of people, women especially, who've gone through abuse, marital rape, or but then when I started approaching them, they were a little hesitant to tell stories, because of course I do understand this is a very sensitive topic and not many people would want to discuss about whatever they've gone through first, because that is a very traumatic experience that they've been through. But yeah, the what do you say? The exclusivity of stories have, I mean, perished these days. You don't have the many sources that you require for a stories. And I approached one person whose child was missing. Even he was very unsure. So, everything was midway, because a lot of people, they don't trust us anymore. That is something I feel is missing, because as you said, there's no transparency. I mean, editors shouldn't be demotivating, because I've heard from a lot of my friends and my ex-colleagues that they're very exhausted, that pursuing a story
Yeah.
gets so difficult, so exhausting, that even though the story has so much in it, but because of all this, they're so demotivated and stressed that the story does not come to the does not come well. So that is something
Yeah.
I needs to be done.
The manpower too. Like,
Absolutely.
there are organizations which have limited people as editors, and it could be those two, three, four same editors who are probably processing 30, 40 stories.
Yeah,
Um, so it can get very exhausting, and like the brain turns into a bush by the end of the day. They are like, I don't even want to think about this
yeah,
anymore. But creativity can't come from a place like that, right? You need to be
it needs time.
rested. You you need time to actually sit on it and
Yeah,
do it. Also, I think why people are not trusting journalists, it's something I've encountered as well, is because maybe someone who approached them tried to sensationalize their news. Like we were discussing before, everything has become very clickbaity. And okay, yeah, there is one part to it which grabs our attention, but there is also another part to it where some element of the story might be overplayed or underplayed to the point that it's not true anymore. And then people go like, okay, why did you tell a story like this? This is not the way we told you the story. So could be because of that as well.
right. So, Pranati,
Yeah.
now that we've almost come to the end of the podcast, I want to know, what are your hobbies, interests? What are you the most passionate about? What do you enjoy doing?
I enjoy writing to the most, to the very core of it, to my bones, I'll say. And not just news form of writing, not just storytelling form of writing, but I also am a big fan of journaling. I know a lot of, coaches and mindset coaches and even psychologists, therapists will tell you to journal. But I actually even like to do it on my happiest days. I like to do it on my lowest of days, but I also like to do it on my highest of days. So I love to write, and I actually have a small book coming out soon, which
Oh,
is going to be a collection of love poetry. It's about love and relationships, a topic that we are very like a lot of us feel a lot towards, and we find some of it hidden within ourselves, some
absolutely.
of it our hearts can relate to. So I really like to read and also write this kind of stuff. I like poetry. I like Rumi. um, I also like reading nonfiction about, it could be about love and relationships. I recently read Attached, which is a book about adult attachments. I also like to read self-help kind of books. I also like to read books which are based on like a history anthropology point of view, like
Mm-hmm.
21 lessons from the for the 21st century, or of Harari, and even Sapiens, Homo Deus. I like to read these kind of books, but I'm also still a big fan of fiction. Percy Jackson is what got me into hardcore reading. I loved Greek mythology because of those books, and then I would also go on YouTube, search stories about Zeus, search stories
Right.
about what happened with all the gods,
Yeah.
and so I like literature. I like Greek, Roman, Egyptian literature. So that's one thing. But when it comes to hobbies, I'm also a very close friend of nature. I love to be in the nature's company. So anything that comes with it, trekking, boating, hiking, even adventurous activities, rappelling, rock climbing. Big fan of all of that.
Right. So I just, before we end this, I just want to know, what message would you like to give to the young people, especially somebody who's trying very hard or say maybe wants to be a hardcore journalist in today's time? What advice would you want to give to them?
I don't know if I would be the right person to give advice to them, because I'm not heads. I may be like knees deep into the field, not heads deep into the field yet. But to any writer or to any journalist who is very much hardcore or involved in investigative reporting, I'll just say that um, you're one of the very few people who is doing a very not only hardworking but also investigative and highly analytical job. You are doing important work in bringing someone else's story to life. You are trying to amplify someone else's voice, which um, the person wants to be amplified, but it can't get amplified. So I would say you're doing God's work, but don't sacrifice creativity along the way. You will find an editor or a platform that is willing to work with you, and maybe you can, through effective communication, through effective maybe some requests, you can try to tell the story in the best possible way. Also be open to feedback from your editor. They have seen lots of stories, so they might have some suggestions for you, so you can take that into account. Keep a good relationship with them, and yeah, do your best to bring your story to light, and then share it with everyone so that we get as many eyes as possible on it,
Right.
because I don't know how many people are actually reading the whole news anymore.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pranoti. It was a lovely conversation with you. I mean, I wish this was happening in person, and
I know,
because
right?
I still have so much to say, but I do understand both of us have some time constraints. But yes, I enjoyed the conversation. I wanted to call somebody who's been on both sides of the spectrum, right? And wanted to know the thoughts and perspective you have, because it's very difficult to get a hold onto hardcore TV journalists or say newspaper journalists, because they don't have much time. As you say, time is something that we don't, all of us
Yeah.
don't have. So yeah, I mean, thank you for doing this, and I'm really happy that we could bring this to light today, and I hope we do this very often and bring more stories to life.
Thank you so much for having me. I will say it was a definitely good vibe
Yes,
episode.
we always try to end this on a very good note because we don't want any propaganda or anything, we just
Yes,
want perspectives and opinions, and that is very subjective. And everything should be ended on a good note. So that's why good vibes only.
sounds great. And I love the work that you're doing with this. I also watched some of the previous episodes. So you're speaking to people from all kinds of
Yes,
backgrounds.
yes.
Just keep going. I'm gonna be a big watcher.
Yes, thank you, Pranoti, and I will see you soon. Hopefully, when I come to Pune, maybe we can catch up for some bun maska and
Sure.
tea.
I would love to. Yep.
Yeah, okay, I will see you soon. Yeah,
Okay, see you.
thank you for watching the Good Vibes Only podcast. I will come with another story in some time. Till then, I hope you subscribe to my channel, and we will bring more stories like this to life. And keep supporting the Good Vibes Only show. I'm your host. Thank you so much.